Hey everyone, I'm Jaden,
And I'm Noah.
and we are the Super Gamer Bros. And this is the Super Gamer Bros podcast. We're just a couple of brothers who love playing games and love talking about games, so that's what we do. Today, Noah, is our special May the 4th be with you episode.
That's true. Happy May the 4th.
Happy May the 4th. It's a Tuesday and it's 2 weeks in a row, so just all the Gamer Bros fun. And doing a Star Wars themed episode like we are, I figured I'd bring in one of my friends, Star Wars expert. So everyone, please say hello to Dylan.
Hi,
Hello there,
Dylan.
General Kenobi. Oh wait, I was supposed to wait for the General Kenobi. I'm so sorry.
Yeah, somebody else is supposed to say that part.
Hi, how's it going?
All right. Anyway, so Dylan, you I guess to give your backstory a bit, you and I met. We met in a D&D game.
Yeah.
You joined in on a D&D game that I had been in with some other guys after we were failing so hard. The DM thought we needed help.
Yeah, that was a very fun first session.
Yeah, we had a great time. Anyway, so then you actually we'll talk about it more later, but you have a podcast of your own, which initially was a Star Wars podcast.
Yes, it was. We were gonna call ourselves Bantha Tracks, but alas.
That's a cool band name, too.
Yeah, right. So actually, fun deep cut for that is Bantha Tracks is actually one of the original Star Wars newsletters.
Man,
That's a deep cut.
I made a good choice. Anyway, guys, so today we are talking about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. I mean, really, what all can be said about Star Wars? It's legendary fandom mythos.
I mean, I would argue that Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order is the best Star Wars game in the past decade and probably the only good one, honestly.
Well, I would say Star Wars Galaxies was pretty amazing, but that's because I put so much of my life, most of my high school time was spent playing that MMO.
Star
It
Wars.
wasn't great, but it was home for a very long time.
Hey, I was partial to the Old Republic myself.
I actually got back into that a little bit and started playing it again. It's a good, especially if you just want to play through the story mode and get through all that stuff. Yeah, it's a solid game. Not a great MMO, but a solid game.
Not a great MMO, I'd agree with that, but the stories are surprisingly good for each of the different roles.
Yeah.
Anyway, Jedi Fallen Order. One thing I loved about Jedi Fallen Order is it builds off of Star Wars Rebels, which I think is a really underrated Star Wars show. Nobody really watched it, but it was so good.
Yeah, Star Wars Rebels it reignited my love for Star Wars, to be perfectly honest. I spent so much time with the sequel, with Force Awakens. I enjoyed it, but it was all right. It wasn't anything I like fell in love with. But with Star Wars Rebels, it was just that premier storytelling that.
Oh yeah, the writing is unbelievable.
Well, I mean, my way that I've always felt about Star Wars in general is the movies are the weakest part of the whole lore of everything.
Yeah.
Like the shows, whether it's Clone Wars, Rebels, Mandalorian, all those, all really good. The games are, for the most part, really good, especially story-wise. And then the movies are just like, it's like they're a good base work, but I feel like you're going into the books, the comics, everything else is really cool. I was really upset when Disney first bought Lucas and they said like, hey, everything that isn't in the movies, in the TV shows that was released before today is no longer canon because they threw out so much cool stuff in the books and everything else that existed beforehand.
But there was also a lot of stinkers. So I mean,
I'm still upset.
It was necessary to kind of like, especially bring in and streamline everything and then pick and choose some of the best parts of the extended universe, which sucks that a lot of things are now no longer canon. Jaqen and Jaina, Anakin, all that, but yeah, it's sometimes though when you kind of feel like have so much time, especially since like what it was like almost 20 years between the final Star Wars movie came out and the prequels started back up, that like that's the only thing that kept Star Wars alive were those novels, and everybody just went their way with it and was like, hey, let's have some fun.
Yeah, but I do like that Disney has brought a lot of my more favorite aspects of the extended universe into the canon. Like Darth Bane was brought back in, which was really cool because he's just one of the best Star Wars characters ever.
And Revan.
And they are expanding on it. Like this Fallen Order is canon, which is awesome because it is, of all of the newer Star Wars properties, it is my favorite story. I really love the story. And overall, I think it's just a really good addition and kind of showing that single player Star Wars games are still going to happen and can still very much be very good.
Oh yeah. I mean, even though it's been a number of years, I mean, we have the Jedi Outcast series, the Shadows of the Empire, all these games, Rebel Assault. That was one of my earliest Star Wars game memories, was playing Rebel Assault, and X-Wing versus TIE Fighter. Should now have that in Squadrons. But it's, yeah, like the best part of everything with the new games is we finally have reached a point where we can actually bring in true acting, and it's not just like these person stands there and their mouth moves and their eyes emote no emotion. Hello, I am a Jedi. I am here to save you. We get Cameron Monaghan playing Cal, who's just knocks it out of the park, because I was a fan of him from Shameless.
Me too.
So I mean, I didn't watch Gotham, so I really can't speak on that. But
I liked him in Gotham. He was really good in Gotham.
Has nothing to do with DC Comics whatsoever, but Gotham is okay. But I completely agree with you. The being able to convey facial expression and emotion so well in the game adds to the excellent writing that the Respawn team brought, and it just made every character in this game feel so real to the Star Wars lore.
And it certainly is, I hope, a sign of things to come, especially because I remember when Disney first bought Lucas, there were a lot of Star Wars games that were canceled, like Star Wars 1313 was canceled.
I think it's coming back.
I'm hoping, but
that's been a rumor for years.
Yep. Then there was also like the Star Wars Darth Maul game was canceled, and all these different properties that really, for a while, the whole Star Wars game specter really was kind of up in limbo because EA bought exclusivity, and then they had Battlefront 2, and for a while that was kind of it. They did have Fallen Order, but really since then there hasn't, other than I guess Squadrons, there hasn't been anything. But now their exclusivity is running out, so I'm very interested to see what other developers potentially could bring to the table.
But not to mention, LucasArts is back.
Yeah,
they're revitalizing LucasArts, which was outside of Star Wars game, was like we had Full Throttle, so many banger of games that came out from there.
We've talked about one of their games, Grim Fandango. We talked about an episode a long time ago.
Sorry, that was my dog shaking next to me.
Anyway, so yes, let's get into the game.
Yeah, let's do it.
So first we'll talk about the setting. So the game takes place on several different planets in the Star Wars universe. You start out on the planet Braca, which is where Cal Kestis ended up landing after escaping Order 66, and he hid on that planet for 5 years. There's not much to it. It's just kind of the introduction planet, and then when you leave it, you start the actual kind of exploration aspect. You get on planet Bogano, which is the location of the Zepho Vault, Zepho, the Zepho homeworld, Kashyyyk, the Wookiee homeworld, Dathomir, the former homeworld of the Night Sisters and Night Brothers, Elam, the ice planet where Jedi go to find kyber crystals.
Also Starkiller Base.
Yes. Oh man, I forgot about that. And then also Nur, which is an oceanic moon of Mustafar, where you kind of end the game. And all of those, except for Braca and Nur, you basically have completely free exploration of, going through the story, getting collectibles. Those are kind of where the bulk of the game is.
That's true. So is this the part where I can complain about the maps?
Yes.
Okay, my biggest problem with the maps in this game is that when you're trying to 100% it like I did, the maps become a maze and you spend hours trying to get to a certain point that you can't get to. Other than that, the designs are all very unique on each of the planets. The creatures, the enemies there are all, I think, very well done. And Other than that, I think I would say that Dathomir is my favorite planet.
Yeah, I like Dathomir quite a bit. That was honestly, it was one of the first places I went as soon as I was able to freely travel because I wanted to get that double-bladed lightsaber.
I did the exact same thing.
I
Yeah.
actually did that accidentally because I didn't know that that's where you get the double-bladed lightsaber. I just went there because I was like, Dathomir, that's a cool place, and was just exploring it until I got to a point where I couldn't go any further and got the double-bladed lightsaber. And
All right, show off.
yeah, I mean, I just I guess I just got lucky. But man, that planet kicked my ass going there early. I did not have enough
I was going to say
experience.
early
Yeah.
it was difficult.
Yeah, I pulled up a video so I could just speed run past everything and just like avoid that. Okay, there's a person that's gonna just kill me here. Okay, I'm gonna just hop around here and jump over this way, climb up here. Okay, avoid all that mess and not die.
It did have a lot of those Dark Souls type where they're like standing on the side of the door frame when you walk in and they hit you. And I'm like, are they just told to stand there and wait for anybody who walks through that door?
This is my job. I will never allow anybody to walk through this doorway. No one's been here in 50 years, but okay.
Yeah. It was fun. I also just love I love Kashyyyk because of just how absolutely beautiful Kashyyyk is with the forest and the origin tree. It's all just very cool locations. And like you said, Noah, it's cool just how different all of them are. You have kind of like Bagana, which is like a bunch of little floating islands all together. Zephyr, which is like kind of city-ish. Kashyyyk, the forest. Dathomir, kind of like the desert, Night Sister, Night Brother area. And then Elam, the ice planet. Yeah, definitely a lot of variety there, and that's really nice.
And that's the nice thing with, I'd say really with the new like graphics engines that we have, that these places that we once had to kind of like picture in our brains, like, oh yeah, this would look really, really cool, this planet, but it looks like junk on a PlayStation 1, and we have to like kind of uptick our visual and like kind of picture it ourselves. But now we get to see just how gorgeous some of these locations are, how desolate some of these locations are. It just goes to show, like, with the evolution of technology, seeing what we can be able to do with Star Wars games and storytelling with Star Wars. Like, I'm excited for what's to come.
I know, I'm also excited. I was going to say, you're definitely right. I complain about the new Battlefront games a lot whenever they're brought up, but what they did right is the graphics. I mean, the game looks amazing, and if you ever play on Felucia in that game, it's so good.
Yeah, that's I started replaying that a little bit not horribly long ago. Guy I watch on Twitch, he plays it, and so I was like, you know what, I got it for Epic Game Store, so I might as well play it. But yeah, it's I think that's why, especially like Jedi Outcast and some of those earlier games are still games that are easy to go back to, is even though the graphics aren't great, the story was still solid, and that's something that really went away. What's the word I'm looking for? That's something that EA really went away from with creating any of their games. Like the first Battlefront, I don't think that had a story mode. That was just a straight multiplayer game, correct?
Yeah, that's
Yeah,
correct.
it was. Yeah, it was made by DICE was the thing, and they came straight off of Battlefield as their only other mainstream game.
Yeah, and it's also like, I feel like DICE and EA made a miscalculation with Star Wars, the first Battlefront game they made, because their reason for not having a story was like, well, in Battlefield, no one plays the story. So, like, obviously people don't care about the story. And it's like, well, I mean, that's true for maybe Battlefield, but, Star Wars fans are playing this game, and Star Wars fans want the story.
And that's the thing. Like, Battlefield 1942 is one of my earliest, like, first-person shooter, like, multiplayer games. And I love the story mode with that. Like, playing some of the, like, that's why I play any of the first-person shooters, is because of the story. Because one, I suck at multiplayer, so it's the only way I'm going to play it. But that's the thing with like EA in general. Like, they did it with Madden and all these other sports properties, is they got the money, and just like a NFL star who got paid is like, you know what? I don't need to really do a whole lot now because I'm already getting my money.
Yeah, they really when they have like the Madden Ultimate Team, the FIFA Ultimate Team, those are their big money makers. And I think that really kickstarted their overall thought process into like the games as service thing of have them online where you can constantly pump in new content and get money from people and like microtransactions and things like that. Um, to potentially it took them away from single player games because those are someone pays for it once, maybe a few months down the line you release DLC and they pay for that as well, but for the most part it's like you're putting all this time and effort into something that you get one return on per person and then that's it.
Yeah, and it's understandable that way some of their marketing kind of runs, but it's kind of just funny that like I made a mention about it being like a football contract, but their contract was running up, and just like other stars, when you're about to hit free agency, you got to show what you can do, and we got Star Wars Fallen Order right here.
That's true. I'm glad they gave it to Respawn because they had their surprise success with Apex and Titanfalls. Both
Yeah.
of them were obviously good, even
Yeah.
though they didn't sell well. So, they've been on a hot streak, honestly. Respawn's a great company.
I mean, Respawn, yeah, because their first game when they became an independent developer, they released Titanfall, which was online only. Then Titanfall 2, which had a story, which was an incredible story that not a lot of people played, but I absolutely love that story. And I hear that there are definitely rumors that Titanfall 3 is possible, and I'm very excited for that. If that ever ends up happening.
Don't you be teasing me like this now?
No, I've heard it. I've heard it in the gaming news verse that it's like EA has basically left it up to Respawn of whether or not they want to do it. Like EA's like, yeah, if they make it, we'll publish it, So it certainly has that possibility. And I think at least with Jedi Fallen Order, Respawn has shown like, hey, let us make story games and people will buy them because this game did sell very well.
Well, and that's where if a company knows what their demographic and also who they're making a game for, and you understand exactly what it is, people want Star Wars because of the story. They want more. They want to feel part of the universe. That's why we come to these games. We don't just play Battlefront because we like to play as Luke Skywalker and cut down stormtroopers. Yeah, it's a fun little thing to do in a pastime, but it's not something that's going to be really necessarily sustainable. I mean, look at Final Fantasy VII. All these, really, most of the Final Fantasies from the PlayStation 1 and 2 era, like fantastic games that people still play to this day. And they just did a remaster. They just resold it with upgraded graphics for just even the PlayStation version. Like, you can still make money if you make a good game.
And I did buy the collector's edition of that.
I haven't played the remastered version yet. I really want to. I know that they're finishing their exclusivity because I don't play my PlayStation very much anymore.
Boo.
Yeah, that's all.
I know.
I
just don't have time anymore, it seems like. But yeah, no, this was honestly, it was one of my favorite games in the last couple of years, though, for sure. Star Wars Fallen Order.
Yeah, this game was everything I wanted it to be when it was announced. I was like, please give us a game where we're just a Jedi going through a story like Force Unleashed,
Oh gosh. Like I don't know why my brain was only thinking of Jedi Outcast, because Force Unleashed, that was like, give me that instead of Battlefront, because that is literally the best of both worlds.
It's amazing.
Yeah, I mean, really, this episode that we invited you for, we were like, it was one of 3 Star Wars games. We were either going to talk about the original Battlefront 2, Force Unleashed, or Fallen Order. And
yeah, stick with something that's in canon.
Well, really, I went with this one because I wasn't sure. I felt like it was probably the one you most likely would have played.
I played them all.
Yeah, yeah,
they're all amazing.
No, because I was like, I mean, he says he's a Star Wars guy. I don't know how much of a Star Wars guy he is, because even like when we talked about doing Jedi Academy for the indie bit, I was like, I don't know, like he might not even know what that game is, because like no one I knew growing up ever talked about it. Like we only knew about it because of our cousin. And so I was like, hey, you ever heard of this game? And he was like, oh yeah, I love it. I love this guy. And I was like, good, let's do it.
Yeah.
It really worked out. But anyway, Man, I'm gonna have to edit a lot of stuff out of this one. Anyway, yeah. So we'll get to the characters here. First, we have our protagonists. Dylan, why don't you tell us about the protagonists?
We got Cal Kestis, as we mentioned earlier, played by Cameron Monaghan, Gotham and Shameless fame. He's a former Jedi Padawan who's been in hiding since Order 66. Master was actually one of a species that was introduced in Star Wars Rebels. So when I saw his master, I was like, wait a second. And then like he said his name, was like, oh, that's like, it's just really cool, like seeing that like we're embracing more of these other species that we've never seen before. But yeah, it's sorry, I completely lost the thing I was looking for here.
Also, I don't know if this is canon, but I think Cal might be the first ginger Jedi. That might be a thing in canon. I mean,
that's a good possibility, actually. I mean, unless you count Maz Kanata.
we don't.
His master is Jaro Tapal, if that's what you're looking for.
That was what I was looking for.
Master Jaro Tapal.
Yeah, sorry. More for you to edit. I'm sorry.
No, it's a lot to remember. Don't worry about it if you have to ask something like that. Because the only thing I have is his page.
But yeah, so his master was Jaro Napal.
Tapal with a T.
Nepal.
Tapal.
I like Nepal. That's his new name. I'm writing into Lucas Films. I'm like, this is what it is now.
Yeah, but that's a country, or that's a country or something. I feel like you can't.
Makes it easier for me to remember.
Yeah.
But no, he was a Lestat, which honestly, like, was the Lestat. They're just species. It's just a fascinating species. I would love to explore more of in later films and stories and TV shows, because they're just a really nice addition, if I do say so myself. But he was a Jedi Master who served during in the Clone Wars. He was the master of Cal and was actually the person that saved him, kept him protected. Cal, you play as him all the way through. Eventually finds his nice little sidekick of BD1 and runs into a, well, you don't know it at first, just initially, but Siri, who is a Jedi who's in hiding, cut herself off from the Force, a la Luke and The Last Jedi, and Grease, I should say, who is the quirky pilot that you always have to have in a sci-fi movie or game. You have to have the pilot that's a quirky guy that's just like, I'm the jokester. So if anybody brought me onto a spaceship, I'm probably the pilot.
Well, he's also always the guy who's like reluctant to do everything.
Yep, literally me.
He's kind of like Hal in that sense, where he's like, I don't want to be here, but I guess I'll do it. But I was gonna say, yeah, we have the annoying pilot, and then there always has to be a droid sidekick. I'm one of the few who have the unpopular Star Wars opinion that we don't always need a droid sidekick.
Well, then you would be wrong. No, I'm just kidding.
I don't know. I think it always
Star Wars fandom.
I think it depends. I do think BD1 is a really cool sidekick. I think he like works really well. He's certainly, they put him in there so he is useful and also not like a hindrance ever. Yeah, pretty much.
Perfect thing to get our hero out of any scrap. He's basically a sidekick, just like with comics and stuff like that. Thing that they learned very early on is like, we need somebody that we can be the reason why they get out of things, that we kind of write ourselves into a corner, and at the same time, the thing that we have to rescue so that the stakes are raised.
Yep, that's how they usually work. That's our kind of like our four main heroes throughout a majority of the journey. And then we have our antagonists. We have the second sister, formerly known as Trilla Suduri. She is the former Padawan of Seer. She was turned into an Inquisitor after she was captured by the Empire. And then there's the ninth sister, formerly known as Masana Tide. She is a female Dowutin. I think that's how it's pronounced.
Never heard of it.
She once served the Jedi Order as well before joining the Galactic Empire as a member of the Inquisitors. The Inquisitors were something that in Rebels, when they were first introduced, I was not really for it. I Yeah, I just really didn't like the whole Inquisitor aspect. I didn't think it really fit in with the initial trilogy movie
Well,
feel.
and that's actually a thing that came in from the extended universe. There were the Jedi that they essentially called them Dark Jedi, like in the extended universe games. Those are the ones that weren't necessarily Jedi, and they weren't necessarily turned to the Sith, because you can't have a you can only have one Sith, one master, an apprentice, and the Inquisitors were essentially just the only people that outside of Darth Vader could take out some of the Jedi that they were hunting. And eventually, once they served their purpose, they were killed, because Darth Vader and Darth Sidious are the only two people that could actually be anything of importance, which is why you see in the Clone Wars, Ventus, she got cast aside and they try to kill her. They're only able to serve a purpose, and once your purpose isn't served, you're going to the trash.
That's true. I was gonna say I actually love the Inquisitors, and I thought they were genius to add. I was gonna say I know you talk about the rule of two, one master, one apprentice, but if you read the Palpatine book, which is Darth Plagueis, Palpatine does not follow the rule of two, which is why he has Count Dooku, Darth Maul, Darth Vader. He has multiple Asajj Ventress. He has multiple people in the dark arts going on at the same time, so he doesn't really care as long as he is the strongest and the one in control.
Yeah, he always wants the strongest, and if they can keep the other one in control, then that's fine. The moment that Dooku and Ventus started forming and becoming strong together, that's when it's like, hey, you gotta kill her, because if you want to be my right hand man, yeah, you gotta only one, two, you and me, you and me, you and me. Oh, Anakin, don't worry about him. He's just my side piece.
He's so good. Jane, did you know that Count Dooku didn't know what the plan was? He didn't know that Anakin was supposed to kill him there.
Yeah.
That's why he was so surprised.
And
yeah, no, you could see it on Christopher Lee's face.
Yeah, the novelization, that scene, like, just was a whole other thing. Like, his final words were just the cry of no as his head was chopped off. Like, that was his last breath, was just no. And it's just like you just hear a noise in the movie. It's not really anything outside of just like air escaping, but it was actually him saying no, because he thought they were supposed to turn him, and that like they were going to be working all together. And just he's a little jerk. That's what he is.
It's perfect. That's exactly how the Sith operate, and that's what I love about them.
Yeah. So then we also have a Terran Malicos. He's a former Jedi that crash landed on Dathomir following Order 66. Being on Dathomir, he became kind of obsessed with the Night Sisters, their whole kind of magic aspect, and then he eventually turned to the dark side himself. One of the least surprising villains I've ever seen in anything, simply because the second he told me his name, I was like, well, that's a bad guy name. Not even just the fact that like Mal, MAL is like the Spanish word for bad, but just his whole name just sounds bad.
Yeah, I think they're probably just like, what should we name him? Like, I mean, he's a Jedi. We're gonna kill him off anyway. So this bad Terran bad.
Right. I feel like he really serves no purpose to the story. I felt like he was just added for another Saber opponent, and his fight was really fun, so he accomplished that goal. It just, him being there and being evil just because was kind of weird to me.
Well, I feel like he was kind of there more to test Cal, because every like Jedi in their journey from like Padawan Knight Master has to have that like temptation to go to the dark side, and I feel like Malicos was really one of the big moments for Cal in that, because it's like, oh, here is a Jedi he was a Jedi, he did go to the dark side. Like, he wasn't like an inquisitor that was like tortured and just kind of did it because she was being tortured, or like Seer who had tapped into the dark side to escape because of that. It was like he was just a dude stuck on a planet and was like, hey, this dark side stuff's pretty cool, let's do that. And and then his whole thing was like telling Cal like, hey, the Jedi are wrong. That's why they were all wiped out, is because the way they saw things was wrong. This is the way things need to be done. And that was kind of his big test on his beliefs.
Which is why I'm all for more gray Jedi, like the Bendu and Rebels. Chef's kiss.
I'm still confused about what exactly they are. They stand apart as neutral, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
it's essentially what the prophecy kind of foretold for Anakin to be. He was supposed to bring balance to the Force. Well, if you have light and the dark, what is in between? You have to have the gray. You find that perfect balance, and that's where like the Jedi were wrong in saying that to bring balance to the Force, you can't bring balance if the light is all that it is. You have to have light and you have to have dark. They have to go hand in hand. They have to coexist. And that's where the gray are able to, that's how they look at the Force, is it's two sides of the same spectrum. It's just the dark side has some aspects that you have to be very careful because it's easily to corrupt and make you go extremely bad. The light has a lot of positives and has a lot of things that want to do good, but at the same time, how many times do we see that groups of people become very, very self-righteous and destroy themselves because of their own ideals superseding that what they're trying to actually accomplish in the first place.
That's interesting. That makes Ahsoka the perfect character to be the face of them, because
Yes.
she walked away from the Order, and even in Clone Wars and Rebels, she never really picks a side. She never treats the Sith like evil villains. She has a lot
Because
of.
she had Anakin as her mentor, the very person who was already struggling with the light and the dark. It was the perfect thing for her to become the gray Jedi, because she understood, like she saw the Jedi turn on her, and they basically just be like, oh, RB, like, we good? We're still friends, right? Like, you're still going to text us? No, I'm like, you guys are completely just wrong with the way that you handle things. And they're like, we don't really necessarily want to hear we're wrong. So you can go if you want, but we're not going to kill you or anything, because like at the same time, we got Sky Guy over here who's already like teetering on the dark side, so we don't want to make him too mad.
That's true. Plus, at that point, it was already widely known that he was the strongest Jedi.
And let's be honest, they all knew that he was with Padme. The Jedi know everything. They could they can see the future, even if it was clouded by the dark side, because at the same time, I don't, which is the one thing that doesn't make sense, that they say that they're it's that the dark side has been clouding them, but at the same time, they built their temple on top of a dark side, like, monument. Like that's where the dark side's like biggest hold on Coruscant was over top of, it's underneath where the Jedi temple is. So technically they should always have been like hard to see because of the dark side, but as the dark side gained more power, I guess that's how it became more and more difficult. But I digress.
Jane, you want to take the story?
Yeah, let's take the story. We put two Star Wars nerds in a group
We
chat
could talk
and see what
about the
happens.
religion of the Force for hours.
Yeah,
let's move on. Let's move on to the story.
Don't you can bring out the whip, like, hey, back in line.
Yeah. All right. So getting the story of the game. 5 years after the Great Jedi Purge and the Galactic Republic's conversion into the Galactic Empire, former Padawan Cal Kestis is hiding on the planet Braca, where he works as a scrapper, salvaging ships from the Clone Wars, and he hides his Force abilities. After he is recorded by an Imperial probe droid while using the Force to save his friend Prof, two Inquisitors, the second sister and the ninth sister, are sent to investigate. The second sister kills Prof for speaking up against the Empire, and Cal ends up making his escape. He briefly engages in a duel with the second sister before he is rescued by former Jedi Knight Seer Junda and her pilot Grease Dridus and their ship, the Stinger Mantis. Seer takes Cal to the planet Bogano in the hopes that he can access an ancient Zepho vault. En route to the vault, Cal befriends a small droid named BD-1, who was formerly owned by the Jedi Master Eno Cordova, who was Seer's master as well. It's revealed that the vault was built by the ancient civilization, the Zepho, and a Jedi holocron containing a list of Force-sensitive children was hidden inside this vault by Cordova. And Seer believes the list could help rebuild the Jedi Order, but the only way to access it is following Cordova's path because she doesn't know how to get in, and having cut herself off from the Force, she can't really do it without reconnecting to the Force, which she does not want to do. Real quick, I will say I really like the introduction of the Zepho in this, kind of as like the initial Force users. I thought that was really cool, kind of exploring the origins of the Force there.
That's the one thing that like I would love to see more kind of delved into, especially like the relation with the Zepho and also the Wills, since the Wills are essentially the not the grandparents, but the very first of the Force.
They're like the embodiments of the light and dark side.
Yeah,
They're almost like gods.
yeah, they really are. So just curious to. We need George to start writing more, considering the fact that that was his creation. That's what Star Wars was originally supposed to be, is the story of the Wills.
Really?
Yeah, it was the original title was not the original title, but like his first draft was something along those lines. I'll have to pull it up and find it later, but it was something along the lines of Luke Starkiller, like the story of the Wills or something like that.
Yeah, he was Luke Starkiller. I forgot that. Anyway, yeah, just that little aside. So Cal then heads to the Zepho homeworld and explores an ancient temple. He finds a clue pointing to Cordova's friend, the Wookiee chieftain Tarful. So then Cal goes to Kashyyyk. He encounters notorious insurgent Saw Gerrera, and he helps free several Wookiees enslaved by the Empire on Kashyyyk. Despite this, he's unable to find Tarful, so Cal returns to Zepho to find more clues regarding the vault, but is then ambushed by the second sister, who reveals herself as Trilla, Seer's former Padawan. She explains that she was captured after Seer betrayed her hidden location under torture, and warns Cal that Seer will inevitably betray him once they find the holocron. Eventually, after exploring the Zepho tombs once more, Cal learns that there is an artifact called the Astrium, which is needed to unlock the vault, and he's then captured by a Haxian brood bounty hunter. He's then forced to fight in a gladiatorial arena owned by the Haxian boss, and as you're kind of fighting in this gladiatorial arena, you're then rescued by Seer and Grease, and you then return to Kashyyyk to meet Tarful. Tarful instructs Cal to go to the top of the origin tree. At the top of the tree, he finds another recording of Cordova saying that the Atrium can be found in a Zepho tomb on Dathomir. And then Cal is attacked by the Ninth Sister, and he defeats her. And I assume kills her. It's kind of like little gray on that.
I wanted to go back to the second sister. I kind of saw the reveal coming, but I still love it, making her Trilla, because the thing about the Inquisitors is a lot of them are still mysterious, so they're open to who they can make them. And I thought this one was done really well.
Yeah, it really kind of like shows you exactly how the Inquisitors are actually brought in, because you don't really get into that a whole lot in Rebels. Like, you just know that they're people that are wielding red lightsabers that at the same time can fly, but actually getting to see a character, and it really just adds a whole level of what's the word I'm looking for? Not necessarily intrigue, but a whole other level of conflict between the main character and who is essentially his master at this point, like the person who he's most looking up to, and finding out that as a Jedi, she failed while his master did everything he could to protect him. She failed and gave up the person who she was sworn to protect, essentially her child, in the sense of Jedis and Padawans.
Yeah, I agree. I also really liked that whole reveal, because to me, like I said, when the Inquisitors were first a thing in Rebels, I wasn't really into it, because to me they were just nameless kind of bad guys, like they very much felt like, forced in for the sake of making conflict in the show, without, like, because obviously in Rebels you can't have Darth Vader be the main bad guy because obviously that's, small potatoes compared to what he's dealing with. So to me, that's kind of what they were in Rebels of just like, oh, there are these guys who exist to hunt Jedi because that's what they do. And then with this, it was like, oh, like, both the second sister and the ninth sister, they were Jedi or Padawan at the very least, and they were basically turned to the dark side forcefully with torture and other means. And it was like there's actually giving like okay, so these Inquisitors were actually good people probably that were then turned bad by Darth Vader. And it definitely, like you said, added that layer of character to them, making them feel like more than just a one-dimensional bad guy character.
Yeah, it wasn't just a person that's like, oh, this person's entire creation. They weren't like a clone or anything like that. They weren't just like, oh, here you are, you're a person. No, you have to kill main character. This is, hi, I'm person. I have a story. And when you look at it, my story is sad story. And we don't like, we want to feel and be cared for, but at the same time, we're here to kill you because you shouldn't exist anymore.
That's true. And what's rough about the Inquisitors, right? They were added just to chase down the remaining Jedi. And the thing is, they have to come from the Jedi Order because not enough time has passed for new Force sensitives, And
that's why they're trying to find that oh my gosh, holocron.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
it also like it explains to me also why the Inquisitors, specifically like second sister, ninth sister, why they are so adamant about finding and killing all the Jedi. Of like, if you look at Trilla, the entire reason that she was put in that position was because of the Jedi, so she like has kind of that firsthand experience of, oh, the Jedi are failures, look at me, look what happened to me, it's Jedi's fault that I was put through this situation. So it very much gives that like, okay, they're not just nameless people following orders. She does even have her personal reasons for wanting to go after the Jedi.
Yeah, it's a sad part of it all. It just kind of goes and shows that while the Jedi tried to train, they at the same time they took kids from their parents and gave them one way of life. And when that life was gone, they just kind of were lost and like aimless. And their only purpose then is because everything that they knew and loved was stripped away and shown to them that they didn't care.
That's true. I hate how the Jedi are revered as heroes when they really did so many bad things. They did a lot of the same things as Sith do. And
season 8 of or season 7 of Clone Wars.
Yeah.
Hearing from the people that live like level 1313 and below and all there. The Jedi didn't do anything. Like they were just self-righteous people. They only cared about stopping the bad guy. They didn't care about who got hurt in the process. And with the two girls whose parents got killed because of a chase that I believe Ahsoka was a part of.
That's true.
Continuing off of that, on Dathomir, Cal's progress is impeded by Night Sister Merrin, who is the last surviving Night Sister, who blames the Jedi for the massacre of her people during the Clone Wars and attempts to keep him away using an army of Revenants, which that's something that I forget, was it season 7, the assault on Dathomir?
Yes.
So it was super cool because that was me not having as much knowledge about Star Wars lore at the time I played this game, because I really didn't get into the more in-depth stuff until after playing this game. Was like eventually like Merrin talks to Cal about what happened, and she describes like this armored man wielding one of those, as gesturing to his lightsaber, and it's like, oh man, she's talking about Grievous. Like that's insane. Like that's that, man. You can see that, you can literally watch that happen and know that
it's Grievous's, it's literally his only achievement in the entire Clone Wars is that he is the person who caused the genocide on Dathomir.
So then Cal on Dathomir experiences a flashback to his former master, Jaro Tapal, sacrificing himself to protect Cal during Order 66, and Cal's Kyber crystal is destroyed. It's also like on this play, he meets a former Jedi, Terran Malicos, who crashed on Dathomir and began seeking to learn the magic of the Night Sisters, growing insane, succumbing to the dark side. Cal refuses Malicos' offer to teach him this dark power and flees after Merrin attacks them both. Then aboard the Stinger Mantis, Seer admits that she cut her connection to the Force after briefly falling to the dark side upon learning of Trilla's becoming an Inquisitor. And then they travel to Elam for Cal to rebuild his lightsaber. After rebuilding it, Cal returns to Dathomir. He retrieves the Astrium, and he kind of finally gets over his guilt he felt in his master's death. He defeats Malicos with the unexpected aid of Marin, who agrees to join the Stinger Mantis's crew.
That is the thing that shocked me the most. When she joined, she's like, all right, I'll go with you. I was like, oh, okay, cool.
There's nothing left for me on this planet. I might as well hang out with this crew.
Yeah, I thought it was really cool. It's really funny because I actually, there's a trophy in this game to unlock every crew member, and I knew I was missing one, and so I was like, well, these are the only 2 other people in this game, and I was like, I remember thinking like, well, I have no idea which one it's going to be because like, there's no way it's Marin. She's a Night Sister. She's not going to join a Jedi. She's not going to do that. But at the same time, Terran Malicos was clearly going to be evil. So it was like at the same, it was still shocking enough to me. I knew, well, it has to be her because it can't be him. But I was still like, nah, there's no way. There's got to be something else. And it was really cool. I really like the Night Sisters are a very interesting aspect of the lore to me. I'm very interested in the Night Sisters, and I thought it's such a shame to me that she is on the crew for such a short amount of time in the game, and why I hope assuming that a sequel of this game is made, that she definitely gets more time in that, simply because I would just love to learn more about that. And it's like, here's like a first-hand experience of someone telling you, of what the Night Sisters were like.
Yeah, more than just what we know of Darth Maul and Savage Opress.
True, and Asajj.
Yeah.
So then, back on Bogano, Cal unlocks the vault, but Trilla attacks him and steals the holocron. Seer then reassumes her status as a Jedi and grants Cal the rank of Jedi Knight. The pair infiltrate the Fortress Inquisitorius on Mustafar's oceanic moon Nur. After battling his way through the fortress, Cal defeats Trilla and retrieves the holocron. Seer then attempts to reconcile with her former student, but Darth Vader appears and kills Trilla for her failure. Seemingly kills Seer, and then, you run because you can't take on Darth Vader. Like, holy
Many
shit,
have
man.
tried, all have failed, except for Obi-Wan Kenobi because he had the high ground.
No, Darth Vader will always be one of my favorite Star Wars characters, and seeing him in anything, as soon as he's there, I'm like, oh shit,
Like,
it's on.
It was one of the coolest reveals that I totally saw coming ever. It was like just him showing up and just like, that's something that, anyone who isn't really into the deeper Star Wars lore doesn't realize maybe just how powerful Darth Vader is. And this game shows you like Cal, nothing. Like Cal and Seer would just like play things to him. They were together not a match for him at all.
Oh, that's my favorite part of the whole game, when she dives at him and he just swipes his finger aside and she just flies away. I was like, well, she's the strong one.
Yeah. So then Cal, Seer, and BD managed to barely escape after basically just dropping an ocean on them by breaking a window, flooding the entire base. They end up back on the Stinger Mantis. Cal realized that gathering these children would just make it easier for the Empire to target them, destroys the holocron, believing it to be better for those children to discover their own destinies. Then their mission now complete, Cal asks his crew where they should head next, and then credits. I really
sequel.
Yeah, I really enjoyed the story of this game. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, the story was just fantastic. Like I mentioned before we started recording, the thing I sucked at was the combat and just all that stuff, because I'm not very great when it comes to dodging and blocking and stuff like that, because my reflexes are no bueno.
Okay, see, that's what I love about this game. I played Sekiro multiple times and I loved it. And this game really feels similar to that because it has the parry. I think any good combat system has a parry. I love to use them because I want to feel like I can be good enough not to get hit no matter what. You know what I mean? And this game definitely provides that.
Okay, let's talk about the combat.
We're just stepping ahead.
Yeah. Anyway, so yeah, like you guys were saying, combat focuses on swordplay. Use your lightsaber, force powers to fend off enemies. You have light and heavy attacks. There's a combo system. As you said, Noah, blocking and parrying plays a key role in fending off enemy attacks. You do have a block bar, a stamina bar, so you cannot just endlessly hold block, which is good. I like when games do that. This game, I think, also does it really well because both you and enemies have a block bar. I've definitely played games where it's only one or the other, and those games are either too easy or stupidly difficult for that reason. So it's nice to have that balance of having it twice. There are unblockable attacks. Enemies flash red, so you have to just dodge them. And like you said, Noah, parrying requires specific timing, which I'm not good at, and Dylan is not good at. I can do it a solid 50% of the time, and that's it.
Yep, same here. I might be 25%, but
To be fair, in this game, it is really hard to parry a lot of different people because I hate when games do this, but Respawn did it really well. All of their enemy types have very different attack timings. They're all extremely unique. All the dark troopers with the double blades versus the staff. Who else? Oh, the enemy, the regular stormtrooper with the shock club thing. I'll talk about the force meter.
Yeah.
There's a force meter in the game that controls your force powers. It's a blue bar that tracks your offensive and defensive force powers, so both drain the same bar. And to regain it, you basically attack enemies. If you land a hit, the bar goes up. I don't like this aspect because I would rather that the force power go up over a certain amount of time because I want to be able to use those force powers a lot alongside my lightsaber, and I felt like I was never really able to do it as much as I wanted to in this game.
Especially when you're playing as a Jedi who has access to the Force. Like, you don't really see any of these other Jedi in other games and movies and stuff like that. Like, all right, I've used the Force. Now, all right, I have to swing at you and try to hit you a couple more times so I can be able to use Force Push one more time.
Right, as far as I've seen, there's not really a limit on the Force.
It's just the midi-chlorians.
Don't get me started on the midi-chlorians.
I definitely think it's like having like hit enemies to gain some sort of bar is very common in games. I think it doesn't really work with the Force though. I think it should have been automatic, but I can't. It also can be difficult to do automatic, and we'll get into that later. It's still like I do like how you level up the Force powers, and I do like how powerful they can get. They certainly do, I think, feel like when you have the max level, they do feel very strong, especially when you're up against like waves of stormtroopers and you can just blow them all away at the push of a button.
My favorite thing to do.
One of my favorite we'll talk about that later. Anyway,
run to the corner, run to the edge of a cliff, and then as soon as they all like are hanging out right on the other side, jump over, force push them all up.
I like to pull them and then impale them. That's like the only
that's a fun
vicious move that Cal can do.
Yeah, I love you got to think how absolutely brutal that is. You're literally just pulling a guy to his death.
Put him on a skewer.
Yeah, so then you also have, in terms of healing, you have stim packs that are held by BD1. They can be used to heal at the push of a button, which is up on the directional pad if you're playing on PlayStation. You can only use a certain amount per rest. I think he starts with 2, and then basically there are, one of the collectibles in the game is just finding more to a max of 10 that he can have. It sounds like a lot, but when you're at that point in the game when you have 10, you can certainly run through them a lot. Enemies do a lot of damage.
Yeah, and that's just another aspect of the Dark Souls, Demon Souls, like not genre, but style of game, where you have to have something to kind of keep you up and going. But if you rely on having those stim packs, then like me, you're going to die.
I would call the Soulsborns a genre. They've definitely come into their own, I think. You want to talk about the enemy types, Jade?
Yeah, I'll talk about the enemy types. So there are a lot of different types of enemies in this game. So you have, all your Empire enemies. You have the Scout Trooper, the Stormtrooper, the ATST, the Flame Trooper, the Shock Trooper, the Purge Troopers, and the Security Droids. Kind of a lot of different subtypes in there, but, keep it somewhat simple. And, I like them. They all definitely offer a lot of variety with enemies. I certainly do hate the Purge Troopers because a lot of Purge Trooper fights require good countering, parrying, which I, once again, cannot do. It's fun. I like there are enough Empire enemies that it never really gets old fighting the Empire. I never feel like I'm just fighting the same enemies over and over again. Someone else say something.
Sorry, I was shouting.
I'll talk about the Purge Troopers. One thing I didn't like about the Purge Troopers is that force abilities don't work on them, and I think that's all okay for somebody who is force sensitive, but for somebody who is not, I don't understand their ability to resist. I understand the gameplay aspect of it, but not the story.
I think it's because with like especially since like Palpatine, Sidious, and Vader and all them were kind of like creating, they needed something, especially if they wanted to get away from the Dark Troopers. Not the Dark Troopers, but the Dark Jedi and the Inquisitors and stuff like that. They needed a trooper that's going to be able to have some sort of armor or some sort of something that's going to make them more resistant to any remaining Jedi that they may come across, which is something we kind of explore a little bit further when we get to Mandalorian, as they've upgraded them and they no longer are people. They're just droids, essentially.
Oh yeah, you're right. I completely forgot about that. That does make sense. And after I thought about it, I was thinking about when you force pull the one with the staff, and he actually does come towards you, but then he uses it as momentum to attack. So they also counter.
The game mostly does something that I really prefer games do, Star Wars games, when you have a lightsaber, which is, for the most part, any enemy is a one-hit kill with the lightsaber. But if they're not, there is a reason for that. For example, the Scout Troopers that have like the batons that can reflect it, or you have like the Ogdo, which is this giant beast that has very thick hide that can just resist the cut of a lightsaber. It's something that, like, going back to like the expanded views with like Darth Bane, he had armor made out of like the creatures that could just resist a lightsaber. There are, one thing that, once again, people who don't know much about the expanded universe don't know, that like there are creatures that just resist lightsabers. They have very strong hides that can do that.
The Great Dragon, for one.
That's a good one. I was going to say the Orbalisks that Darth Bane uses as his armor.
Noah?
Oh, shit. I forget what I was going to say.
All right. So then you have the Haxian Brood, which are basically just bounty hunters. There is the bounty hunter, the commando, and the bounty droid. Basically just 3 different types of bounty hunters. After that section of the story, when you're exploring, they can basically just pop up at random points. Not really random, because it is the same points every time. But anytime you visit a planet, they'll pop up at these points and you have to fight them. I really like them in concept, but I do think in the game, when you're exploring planets for all the collectibles and stuff, they appear way too many times.
Yeah, I was going to say I really enjoyed them the first like 5 times they popped up. And then after that, I just ran every time they showed up.
Yeah, no, I did the exact same.
Yeah, there's not that many bounty hunters. I could kill like an entire world population.
All right. Oh yeah, I felt like this is something noteworthy. Enemy dialogue. I really do like the Stormtroopers when they're just kind of like, they don't know you're there. They're just talking to each other. They're just talking about whatever.
Just workers, just by shooting the breeze.
Yeah, they're bored. They've been standing there for who knows how long, guarding nothing. So they're just talking to each other. And
Must
then
be another drill.
And then, when you start fighting them, I really like how their dialogue works in combat. Very much reminds me of like the Arkham series, where at the beginning, when there's like 7 of them and 1 of you, they're all like, "Oh, we got this guy. He's a loser. We'll kill him." And like if you run away, they'll like yell at you, call you a coward and stuff. But then as you kill more and more of them, they get more and more like freaking out and like, "Oh my God, like we can't do anything," before they accept their fate, and you kill them all.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do appreciate enemy dialogue. Another game that we've previously talked about that had fantastic enemy dialogue was The Last of Us Part 2. Just the things the enemies say, I appreciate that little thing.
Yeah, it's just all part of like that immersiveness of just like, like, hey, these are dudes that are just, it's Thursday for them. They're just doing their job, and then here you come along to ruin their day. Noah, why don't you talk about traversal?
Okay, so Jedi Fallen Order offers a semi-open world maps, all right, on most of the planets. And what that means is they're smaller, limited sections, but you can go, once you unlock all the areas, you can go anywhere at any point. This game also has the ability to find and unlock shortcuts connecting different areas of the map to make backtracking and collectible hunting easier. This is similar to Metroidvania. They'll talk about, anybody who talks about this game will talk about that. And I love aspects like this whenever it's, you come up to something and you're like, oh, I can't get past this yet. I have to come back later. And so I'll go through the story, and in my mind, I'm like, I have to go back and get that thing. So anyway, these examples are like certain force skills. Like at one point you get a double jump to continue the story aspect of Dathomir. This will halt you from exploring certain areas until you get further in the story is what they're mostly for, but then sometimes they'll also hide collectibles.
Which is where I spent a lot of my gameplay.
Yeah, hours diving through those confusing mazes.
Well,
Yeah,
then you get the. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
no, you good.
I was just going to start talking about the next part.
Oh, yeah, sure. No, I was just gonna say I actually don't like that in games. I hate not being able to explore everywhere when I want to. That's how I am with these kinds of games. I usually like doing all my exploring and then completing the story last. Because then it's like I've done everything and then I beat the story and I'm finished. I don't like beating the story. And then, okay, now let me spend 6 hours getting collectibles here, you know? So, like, this was, yeah, I don't like that. I also don't like how you don't start off with a double jump. I hate games where you don't start off with a double jump. Like, it bothers me every time.
You don't get it until quite late in the game.
No, you
That
get it.
was bothering me.
Yeah, you get it while going up the origin tree on Kashyyyk, which is pretty far in the game.
Yeah, that's one of those things that just kind of it doesn't make sense because like you can force push before you can double jump, which is essentially jumping and then force pushing for essentially a second jump. Like that, it makes more sense just to bring them together at the exact same time than here you can force push or force pull, but don't you dare try jumping twice because you haven't quite figured out how to do that yet.
All right, you wanted to continue on, Dylan?
Yeah. So like the one of the parts I'm decent with combat, not great, but the thing I'm even worse at is puzzles.
I thought you were going to say this was your thing.
Nope.
I very much thought that's where you were leading this into. Like,
Nope.
oh man, I'm not going to combat, but let me tell you, puzzles, I got that.
Nope, it just goes downhill from there. No one expects a Spanish Inquisition.
I get that.
But yeah, so there's a lot of different puzzles that you kind of run across, and it's all stuff that eventually unlocks some of the collectibles, some of the memories. That's kind of the cool thing that I really liked as part of when you're just progressing through the story, not even going through the collectible aspect of it all, but you're just walking around and Cal, oh hey, look, there's there's a broken vase. I'm gonna pick it up and take a look, and there's like this memory. You get an idea of like, okay, what happened just before this broke or this cave in happened. So you kind of get to actually get a little bit more exposition on the leftovers of like the world's story without actually being a thing that you have to really care about a whole lot. But like you guys were talking about, you can slow things down, which is how you get across a lot of these terrains where mechanical gears are moving around. It was difficult, and sometimes you start with a slow, and then you run and have to try to run along that wall to jump onto a vine, to swing, to jump onto another platform, and then climb up there and all this stuff. So it definitely keeps you thinking because sometimes you think you know exactly what you got to do, and then you go and do it, but then you find out like you look to the left a little bit. It's like as you're falling to your death, oh, there's a wall I was supposed to run on, and it's not always the most prevalent thing. So it really keeps you on your toes. So that is a kind of a thing. Even though I sucked at it half the time, it was still a fun thing to kind of you don't feel like you are punished for missing something. You're just kind of like, oh, there it is. I'm a big dumb.
Yeah, platforming puzzles are the best puzzles. Oh, why don't you talk about our force powers?
All right, so Cal has he has force slow, so like Dylan said, he can slow down objects or enemies. He can wall run, he can force push, force pull, and double jump. And what I like about this game and the force powers, what I think it does a good job of is implementing the force outside of combat. You use the force for a lot of the puzzles throughout the game, and I mean, nothing makes me feel more like a Jedi than using the force, so good on them. He also has two different lightsabers you can choose from. He has his normal single-bladed lightsaber, and then at one point he gets the double-bladed lightsaber. You can switch between them at any point in the game, so you're not really locked. And then he also has this one unique attack where you press both bumpers L1 and R1, and he will split his saber and use it as two. I wish there was a stance where you could have 2 individual sabers. But next game.
Yeah, it's cool. I think they do a good job making the double-bladed and single-bladed lightsaber very balanced. Like I found myself switching between the two a decent amount of times, like for certain battles. Like I remember against the Ninth Sister on that boss fight, I actually ended up using single blade a lot because whenever I had the double blade out, like I just couldn't land attacks and she was kicking my ass. And then it's like I switched to single blade and it very much was able to just breeze through the rest of that fight. I also like you talking about using force powers outside of battle. I do like how they limited your force abilities in this in a way that made sense because, being like cut off from the force and also it being like Cal's kind of guilt as well as like what's holding him back, keeping him from being able to do these other things, like these repressed memories that he has. I thought that was a really cool way to like limit your force abilities, but then also still have like, you know, he knows how to use a lightsaber because he was trained as a Padawan. Like he can do this, but not this. Like he can do the fighting aspect of a Jedi, but not the Force aspect of a Jedi. It does a good way of explaining both of those things without it being just like, hey, here's a random guy who I guess he can, he has Force powers that he can sort of use, but man, he's good with a lightsaber for some reason. Like there's a very good story explanation behind all of it.
Yeah, you kind of don't really have as much of the Ray aspect of things where, hey, you are really good at this. Like, this is your first time touching a lightsaber? Can't tell.
You wouldn't tell that she was good at anything by the choreography. But that's just me.
Yeah. All right. So then BD1, you also find upgrades for him. You find a scomp link, which allows him to slice and hack into scomp doors and chests, just kind of like a type.
I need more slicing in games, like in Star Wars games. Like that's just a whole untapped thing. Please, 1313, just like give us a really good slicing system. Make it a little bit like Kingdom Come. And
oh God, please no.
Not like it completely, but like, because I mean you're dealing with electronics and stuff like that. So I mean it has to be slightly difficult. Just instead of trying to get 2 joysticks to be in the right spot, like make it a little bit easier, but at the same time something that like makes it difficult. Like each thing is going to be, you have the easy slicing, the medium, and the difficult, kind of like a mixture of Kingdom Come and Skyrim.
Right. That makes sense. I was gonna say there's not really been I don't think like a really good, difficult, but easy enough lock picking system in a game. And Kingdom Come, I know you've never played it, Jaden, but it is unbelievably difficult.
Even on PC. I've tried it on PC and I played it on PlayStation. And I've even played it on the PC with the other controller, and I'm just like, none of it. No, just no.
All right. So then you also get Overcharge, which allows him to interact with zipline switches, terminals, and doors. You get Slice Security Droid and Slice Probe Droid, where he BD hacks and doors. You get Slice Security Droid and Slice Probe Droid, where BD hacks into those specific droids, turns them on your side, and you get the Powered Zipline, which allows you to travel up the ziplines instead of just down zipline. Pretty simple array of upgrades there for a droid. Let's see. This game does have a skill point upgrade system where you gain experience through fighting, collecting, exploring, which unlocks skill points, which are used to upgrade abilities. And as Noah and I talked about in our last episode, the Spider-Man episode, you can get all of the skills unlocked, which is great because any game where you can't is the worst.
Oh yeah, don't make me have to choose and then later on regret like, oh, I need this one so that I can be able to actually finish like this collectible. Oh no, I have to do a new game plus to get this. Fantastic.
Yep, it's the worst. And then you also have meditation circles. They are small save/resting points, similar to the bonfires in the Souls games. You can rest or regain use stim packs, force, and health, but it respawns all enemies as punishment for resting.
The Empire is always doubling their forces.
Yeah, that's pretty simple. So then, collectibles. There are 256 total collectibles in this game. There are 107 cosmetic chests, 8 stim canisters, 113 force echoes, 45 BD1 scans, 32 secrets, 10 terrarium seeds, 19 encrypted logs. So this game has my 2 favorite kinds of collectibles in games, which one are Cosmetic collectibles. I just like cosmetic collectibles. I like making my stuff look pretty. And then two, with like the Force Echoes and the scans and the secrets, they have the world building collectibles where when you look at those Force Echoes, you unlock like a little story that you can read, and you get like parts of stories that build into like these people who you're like reading these echoes about, and all these different little stories that just add to the lore of the game. And I really love when collectibles do that, and this game does that.
Yeah, I'm not a huge fan of the cosmetic collectibles a whole lot. Like in some aspects, it's nice because I mean, eventually, yeah, I want to kind of change my lightsaber color or change my hilt. But like I kind of like to have like a semi-limited amount, and like especially like the tunic. Like I could really go without the tunic unless like you brought up Spider-Man. If I can get punk rock Spider-Man suit, that's the only suit I'm riding with.
I was gonna say you don't like the pink poncho. That's the one I wore the whole game. But yeah, you're right. I completely agree with you. Like changing BD1 and the poncho and the Stinger Mantis. I mean, first of all, you almost never see the Stinger Mantis. And BD1 in the poncho, it just changes colors. Like you said, it's not like dramatic changes to Cal's look, like unique.
Well, there are different designs. You got to pay attention. There are different designs.
All right, but
Trust
it's
me,
not like
I loved it.
it's not like Anakin's robes or things like that.
Like
More nods.
I do think that there are too much in this game of the cosmetic collectibles, but I do like I love anytime I would get one. Like it's not something that I will genuinely go out of my way for unless there's like an achievement or something tied to it. But I do love whenever I find like a new cosmetic item, being like, oh, let's compare this to what I have on now and see which one I like more. Oh, I like this one more. I'll wear that. I do like that. It's just like a little break.
If there was less cosmetics and more like BD scans or something like that, like the fact that it was almost tied for the most of the collectibles with Force Echoes, like that just was a little bit too much for me.
Yeah, I get that.
I hated the terrarium seeds. I mean, they were cool in theory, but the last terrarium seed was my final collectible, and it took me forever to get it because they spawn in a certain time. They're random, so you have to just wait in the area, run, check it, run back to the ship. God, it was horrible.
Yeah, I agree. I also like them in practice, and having like all the plants grown in the ship was really cool. I really liked it, but I do think make them easier to find, I think would have been made those a little better. Anyway, immersion. I think this game was pretty immersive. I felt like a Jedi.
Oh yeah, not as much as the like Force Unleashed or Jedi Outcast series for me, just because you could be able to do literally anything, and there's very few things that hindered your ability to use the Force. You could pick up Force lightning. It was a lot more like you can implement it in your combat much more seamlessly, but very much though, like it was very, very well done. But at the same time, I know that they couldn't have done that because that doesn't fit the genre of game that they created. Like you can't be able to have yourself do anything and everything and run around like the master Jedi you want to be when one, you're an apprentice, and two, it's a Dark Souls game basically.
Yeah, well, it's also like being Cal's character, being a Jedi, not going into the dark side, is a lot of those force powers, are like the lightning and stuff are dark side force powers, so he wouldn't have them. It's fine. Like obviously the game was designed around the force powers they have. Anything else would have felt a little excessive, especially something like lightning. But it's yeah.
At least force heal, I would say. Like that's the.
Oh, that would have been nice.
Yeah, like obviously not something that you can use in excess because I mean, and that's an easy to explain why you can't, because you have to absorb the life around you to kind of like heal yourself. So like you do it too much, then like it should have some sort of like negative effect, but then that's a whole coding thing, and that's just a mess.
Yeah. No, anything to add?
I mean, no, it's a very immersive game. I did feel like a Jedi. What I will say as a Jedi fan, and having been a fan both like pre and post Disney takeover, I was definitely fully aware the entire time that I was in Disney's Star Wars universe. It feels like a little more watered down to me than, like I think old Star Wars, it used to be kind of cutthroat, kind of brutal. George didn't really give a fuck,
Well, I think that's because he wasn't involved in any of the stories because they were all non-canon. So I mean, the style of games that they were creating were very much also of the time as well. Like I didn't really feel like it was a Disney game that I was playing or anything like that. I felt like there was still a lot of impale and cut animals down and stuff like that. Obviously, yeah, you're not necessarily you can't enter in a cheat code to dismember people like you could in Jedi Outcast, which is totally what I did every single time. It combat so much easier, but like the story with it all, like it really brings it all together and kind of shows why they chose to go about some of the things and kind of maybe made it feel more like a watered down version, I guess. They might be able to go more balls to the wall with the second part once if they come out with well, I think they've already basically confirmed that more or less that 2 is possibly going to be happening. It's just a matter of finishing development and story and all that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah, I think there's definitely the potential. Like, I think Disney has shown that it's not, entirely against doing more mature oriented things.
Especially now that we got Disney Plus.
Yeah. So I think, I think it'll, I don't know. I don't know what to think about that. Anyway, we'll move on now. Now, Dylan, I don't know if you know this. I am absolutely obsessed with achievements and or as they're called on PlayStation, trophies in games.
Are you an achievement hunter, sir?
No, I am a trophy collector.
Aha. Even better.
It's never going to catch on. Please stop.
No.
It's totally a thing. It's going to be a thing.
It's going to be a thing. Anyway, so, I like talking about what I feel are like notable trophies.
That's just never going to be a thing.
Usually like, fun trophies, whether names, anything like that, anything special you have to do. Noah and I, we both have the platinum trophy in this game. I believe you do. Yeah, it's not a lot because Noah doesn't complete games as ferociously as I do.
I don't. I managed to finish it, and then I'm like, if I didn't get it all in the first go around, then I'm like, well, I tried.
No, I have.
I almost got the platinum for Spider-Man, but there's a couple of those challenges I couldn't get, and I was just like,
dude, those challenges are ridiculous. I understand. Yeah. Anyway, in this game, there are 2 trophies I felt like were notable because they're kind of funny. One, visiting Alderaan places, because that's a pun for exploring the crashed Venator. So on Zepho, you can find a crashed Republic ship from the Clone Wars era, and it's really like its own little planet map area inside of another planet. But I just thought it was probably my favorite area to explore because you're exploring a crashed Republic ship. The like force echoes you find are all telling the story of this Padawan and Master who were on that ship when Order 66 happened. It's just this whole little contained world with all these explorative opportunities and little like once again like world building, lore building that you can find on there. I thought were really cool.
That is cool. Does that have anything to do with Alderaan, or is that just the name?
Oh, it's just the name. It's just a pun,
and
like all the wrong places. Yeah.
The Venator is actually a pretty important shuttle that has been in a ton. I mean, even Battlefront 2, Clone Wars. So it's definitely something of note to be able to actually get to see the wreckage of it.
And it's like especially cool because it's something that like you don't go near it if you're just playing through the story. Like it is something that entirely is optional in this game, but it's so cool that it does exist there. I also have the trophy what goes around ... for defeating an enemy with their own slowed blaster bolt. So in this game, which I entirely credit The Force Awakens with being able to do this, you can slow down enemy blaster bolts after they're fired, and they just are like in there in midair, and you could like force pull an enemy into their own blaster bolt, kill them, which is just the coolest way to kill someone ever.
Which is really disappointing that Kylo didn't just do it.
True, that's the coolest thing from Force Awakens.
Yeah, it's ridiculous. I love it. I love that you could do it in this game, and it's another one of those things that like it's such like a PG kill like in the game of like it just like it explodes and he dies, there's no blood, no limbs anywhere, but like thinking about it, like you're literally like this guy shoots at you and then you're like nope, and then you just grab him and yank him into it and kill him. Like it's such a brutal kill.
Please help me take the shot, please.
All right, yeah, that's it. Anyway, so next we'll go to our questions. So we'll start with favorite moments. My favorite moment when the Darth Vader entrance. It was something I knew it was coming because I know why EA did it, but they, in their stupid marketing scheme, in trailers of this game that were on TV, they showed this moment, which to me is really stupid because it's supposed to be like a huge, shocking, like, oh my god, there's Darth Vader in this game. But it's like so many people like me, I knew it was going to happen because it was in the trailers that I saw on TV. But even then, knowing it was going to happen, it was still such a cool moment. Like I said, like showing the power of Darth Vader, it was absolutely insane.
Yeah, anytime Vader enters any scene, it amplifies everything tenfold. And any game that's especially set like in that time period, you just know Darth Vader's going to show up. I mean, he showed up in Rogue One and just decimated.
That's
But
true.
then
That's
he
the
just
best 5 minutes of the movie.
Yeah, then he just walks slowly on the tentative when in episode 4. So it's like, man, can you imagine if like the sequel, if the original trilogy, like if the characters that they developed like kept that same type of persona that they had in the stories that we're getting now.
Oh yeah, it's just funny because like the David Prowse was like in his like 60s or so. He was old when they filmed it.
Yeah.
And like Alec Guinness, who was Obi-Wan, was old. But it's like, watching the prequels, like during that time, Anakin hypothetically would only be in like his 40s, maybe. Darth Vader. So like he's not really that old. So
he suffered a severe trauma. He lost like 40% of his body.
I'm not saying this, but it's like but the robot part's still.
It's only 30%.
You're right. He's fine.
Each body part's 10%.
Crawl it off. So yeah, what's your favorite moment, guys?
Yeah, Vader. I definitely have to say Vader as well. That
All
and kind of the reveal with Trilla. It just kind of added a whole other like level of the story to me.
Right, that reveal made it personal to the story in the game as well as to the Star Wars lore, because she's one of the Inquisitors, which is an important group of characters. So that really cements the game in the universe, I think. My favorite moment is gonna have to be Cal's retelling of Order 66. I didn't know if they were gonna do it, and I'm so glad they did it. I thought the payoff was awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool to like actually experience Order 66. It was really, you have you're going through the ship like the moments before it happens, and all the clones are just like joking with you, like, "Hey man, how you doing?" Like, and talking like, "Oh, we're supposed to get new orders today. Oh, we'll finally be able to leave this stupid planet that isn't worth anything." And then 5 minutes later, they're trying to kill you.
And it's just hard. That's just like the heartbreaking thing, especially when you watch it in Clone Wars. God, I got still,
it is
that entire.
Wars.
Oh my gosh! Like I'm not even lying. I had tears in my eyes because it was just like such a powerful moment that Ahsoka was just trying to survive and not die and not kill her friends and just like it's her people.
I know.
Yeah, I will say I did think it was kind of silly in this game where you're kind of like separated from your master. So Jar Tapal is by himself, and Jar Tapal is like, he is a really powerful Jedi, and the clones just cannot get him. And like they're like, you hear like over the comms and stuff how they're like struggling to get him. He's just tearing through them. And then at one point you're like on the other side of a window as like the door opens and he comes through, and there are all these clones shooting at him. And it is the slowest thing I've ever seen. He's just like, he has this double-bladed lightsaber out. He's just walking super slow, and like clones are surrounding him, but none of them are shooting at him. And like, like it's so silly to me.
It looks kind of like animatronic. I know what you mean.
Yeah.
Like when you're looking at it through the glass.
Yeah, it's like so stupid because it's like there's no way he should be dead because they're all looking at him, but no one's shooting. And then like every once in a while they'll shoot, but they're missing the guy who's 5 feet away from them. Like it doesn't work in how serious the situation is.
Right?
Yeah, that fits in the lore. You get that.
I know, but it's still like it's
that's
so
probably
their
part of their joke was like, he's so close, and it's story. We need him. We need him to just like say a few more things before we actually get him killed.
I mean, pretty much. Anyway, moving on. Favorite boss battle? Terran Malicos. I thought that was a really, really good boss battle.
That's true. I love he had 2 curved hilts. How extra is that? And he had a lot of unique attacks, where he like that one where he tosses it up and it's like spinning in front of him and he's like taunting you and then it flies at you. Very cool moves.
Yeah, like he was definitely a very powerful Jedi, you could tell, and it was just a really cool fight. I really liked it. What about you guys?
Yeah, I'm gonna have to say Terran as well. I struggle with most of the boss fights, so I just was happy to be here.
That's funny. The boss fights were pretty hard. Like I had to do like the Terran one like 10 times, the Trilla one like 10 times. But my favorite one was the Ninth Sister, just because she's so huge and such a weird opponent. And I thought her attacks were just interesting looking. Her with her little lightsaber.
Yeah, that was like my runner-up was the Ninth Sister, because the Trilla fights to me, like you fight her like 3 times, I think, no, 4 times, I think, throughout the game, and it was like, by the 4th time, it like the 2nd time against her, which is where you actually find out that it is Trilla, and like you just have to get down to like half her health to end that fight, and that fight took me like 30 minutes. I couldn't beat that fight, but then the last 2 times I fought her like were just a breeze. I did not struggle at all. But like it didn't feel like it was because I was better at the game or anything, because I still felt like I was flailing around like an asshole. I was doing good somehow.
Have
The
you ever
Force was with you.
Yeah.
Have you ever watched somebody who's like really good at the combat in the game? It looks really weird. They use the Force and the lightsabers, all the like a Force pull into the double-bladed spin. They use a lot of weird stuff.
All right, so what we didn't like about the game, for me, like Noah, you had mentioned earlier, the exploration, like the going around getting collectibles, especially when you have like one collectible left, can get real boring, real tedious, and it was certainly a struggle getting all the collectibles in the game.
That and combat. Like as much as combat was fun at the same time, it was also just at times I just it drove me insane because I just kept dying because I couldn't quite figure out exactly what it was I needed to do, and eventually I finally get lucky enough and I'm like, okay, I did it. I'm moving on.
Were there difficulty levels? I can't remember.
Yeah.
Yes.
I didn't play the story mode. I played, I think, Jedi, and I think it was that Jedi Padawan, Jedi Master, Jedi Knight, Jedi Master, or something like that.
Yeah, I did Jedi
Yeah.
Knight.
Yeah, I did Jedi Knight as well.
Yeah. So we'll talk about the DLC with the addition of the
I
Star
had
Wars.
no idea about this.
Yeah, I didn't either. With the addition of a Star Wars Day 2020 update, players can access the meditation arena through meditation circles. Here they can complete combat challenges where they fight multiple waves of enemies set in arenas based on locations from the story. Completing these challenge words where players with 1 to 3 stars, depending on if the player abided by restrictions on the character's health, like never recovered, never took damage, stuff like that, which can unlock additional skins for BD1. You can also do the battle grid, where the players can face off against their own custom wave while being able to grant themselves invincibility, unlimited force, and other cheats. The custom wave is actually you can do pretty much any enemy in the game. Like I saw, like I was looking at videos earlier on YouTube, and like one guy did like all 4 of those legendary beasts at once. It's really cool. This, I had beaten the game before this came out, so I didn't play it. Like I didn't even know this existed until I was researching the game. So it was like I included it, but I have no experience with it, so I really have nothing to say other than I would absolutely, if I picked up this game again, I would definitely do that just for the combat.
See, I've seen a lot of videos on this, and it is super interesting because you can use any person from the game, even like Jaro Tapal, and you can have them do fights against each other. And so you can have like multiple Trillas. There's also Dark Side Cal. You also get that skin in the main game. That was something they added. They added a bunch of stuff, but I mean, anybody who played the game already finished it by then, right?
Yeah, for the most part, yeah. Yeah, I don't know. I feel like that's all we have to say about Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order. Do you, any of you guys have anything to add?
No, I think covered everything pretty well.
All right. So now we're going to move on to the indie bit, the bit where we talk about indie games. Today, we're talking about Star Wars, Jedi Knight, Jedi Academy. So, Noah, I didn't know this. You know the Jedi Knight series, there's Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast.
Yes.
Okay, I didn't know this until I was looking up the game for purposes of this podcast. Did you know that Jedi Knight 2, Jedi Outcast came out before Jedi Academy?
Yeah, that's the thing is
I didn't know that.
didn't know that. And then when I was researching the game, I saw that too. And I was like, well, that's confusing.
They pulled the Sonic Heroes on us, where it's technically the 3rd game in the series, although technically Jedi Academy is the 4th, but they dropped the number thing so more people would play it, which is what Sonic Heroes did. because Sonic Heroes is technically Sonic Adventure 3, but they dropped the number because they wanted more people to play it. And so, yeah, the entire reason I picked this game was I thought this game came before Jedi Outcast, but no, I was wrong. Dylan, how are you doing?
Yeah, this the reason why it came after was Jedi Outcast was while Cal was away and like kind of in hiding, I believe it was. And this was after he finally kind of came to accept who he is and accept becoming a Jedi and help Luke create his new Jedi Order.
See, I didn't know that. I thought it was the other way around. And so I thought the story was he's a Jedi master at this academy, something happens and he quits and then goes to be like a rogue person.
No, that just would have been a better version of the sequel trilogy.
Yeah, so that's, that was a shock. But anyway, so the synopsis of this game, you play as Jaden Core, who is a new Padawan entering the academy. Basically, you for some reason, even though it's never explained, were able to build your own lightsaber, which is like something that had never been done before, building a lightsaber with no Jedi training.
Cool.
So you get to the academy, then you basically go on missions, and you have to stop the Disciples of Ragnos, led by Tavion, a Sith master, from resurrecting the old Sith Lord Marka Ragnos. And that's the story. Gameplay-wise, basically the way the game works is you have 5 kind of like missions you can pick and choose between. You have to do at least 4 of them to advance the story, and then the 5th one is optional. And then you have like a big story mission, then 5 more, mission, 5 more, and then your last 2 story missions. So kind of like 3 waves. You have, lightsaber combat. You have your main attack button, and you just run around attacking. There's not really any sort of organization to it, in my experience.
Which is why I loved it so much, especially as a youngin'.
Yeah. And then you also get access to many weapons. You choose a loadout of weapons before. So the game, you're either playing third-person lightsaber fighting or first-person shooter. And then you also have a multitude of force powers. You have, I think, 6 different force powers that you just start with, like force push, force pull, force sense, force jump, force speed. And then you get 4 light and 4 dark powers that you can upgrade with. And that's the game. Dylan, do you like this game?
I did. I loved it a lot when I used to play it back in the day. I had an illegal copy, so don't tell anybody.
I'm calling the police.
Oh no!
I'm way ahead of you, Noah. They're already on their way.
Oh man, this is how I get done. Dang. But no, there was back in the day. I mean, you had the multiplayer, so that was a fun aspect of it too. Was you got to actually play in like these free for all modes and just wreak havoc.
Yeah, so I really liked it. We played this game years ago with our cousin. I remember we played it for a certain amount of time before we got stuck on the story. We got like lost somewhere. We couldn't figure out where to go, and so we stopped playing. And so I replayed it for the sake of this podcast because it was re-released on PlayStation 4, and I played through the story, beat the story last night, and it was good. Like I really enjoyed the story. It really kind of like you said, comparing the acting of Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order to this, where they're just standing there talking, looking at each other, not moving, eyes, no emotion. That's like the epitome of what this game is. I suppose the combat was fine. The lightsaber combat, especially against other people with lightsabers, it's just absolute chaos. Like sometimes I would get one hit killed by somebody. Sometimes I would one hit kill somebody. Other times we'd flail around for 5 minutes until one of us died. I absolutely, like, if there is a system there, I don't know what it is. I couldn't figure it out. Noah?
I do really like this game. The story is great, and it's way ahead of its time. I mean, the customization is pretty solid. I played as a female Twi'lek character, and my lightsaber was red. I did play with cheats, though. That's because I found the game to be quite difficult. Death came easy, to say the least. There are a myriad of enemies on most maps, and if you're not careful, the maps can turn into mazes. Like Jaden said, I would get lost a lot. Even with cheats on, I would not know what to do. And the hints, like the mission hints, are like, clear out the base. And it's like, oh, okay, that's it. Got it. Not really clear. The combat, I love all the weapons. There's a lot of weapons in this game. All the blasters are unique. The bombs are impossible to aim, but they're fun. And the lightsabers. I know that like these games have renowned lightsaber combat. There's a unique game that's like dedicated to this build, and it is just lightsaber combat. And mostly like how I did it was like a drive-by attack on most people, especially somebody with a lightsaber. And mostly they'd block it, and then sometimes I'd hit them. But overall, I really enjoyed the game. The story is pretty good.
Yeah. Yeah, I was actually really surprised by how good the first person aspect of this game was. The first person, like whenever you would use a gun. Like, there was one mission in the second set of missions where you actually get captured, your lightsaber is taken from you, so you have to go through the whole mission using only guns. And I thought that was a very genius decision because one, it forces you to use the guns, so it's like they made this whole aspect of the game, use it, and like I said, like it works really well. I was very impressed with how good this aspect of it is, and yeah, it was fun. I enjoyed the game. I was able to beat it without cheats. But you know, my biggest complaint about the game probably would be the very sparse checkpoints. But also, like, and there's also inconsistency with it. Like, one of the first missions, you're on Tatooine, and you have to find a droid that these Jawas have. And in that entire mission, which every mission in the game takes about like 15 to 20 minutes, depending on how fast you are, that entire mission has one checkpoint. But then there's another mission where you have to deactivate 5 bombs. And the mission, again, the whole mission took me 10 minutes, but every bomb you deactivated was a checkpoint. So it's like you get so many more checkpoints for, you know, like that's probably my only thing. Like it is made up for by the fact that you can save the game at any point, which basically like I absolutely saved it anytime I got past a difficult fight because I was like, and if I lose, I don't want to do that again. So that did help, but that was probably my biggest thing was just the lack of checkpoints coupled with just how chaotic the lightsaber fighting is. It's like artificial difficulty to me of like, well, the game itself isn't that hard because you know, it's not like I'm bad at the combat. The combat is just kind of wonky, but that paired with the fact that if I lose this, I have to go back 10 minutes to the last checkpoint is what kind of extends the game to me. And so that kind of could take me out of it a bit. But like I said, just save a lot. And I was able to get through it.
Oh, this is Dylan's plug, right?
Oh, well, I thought we were still talking about the game. Dylan, anything you wanted to say?
No, I mean, it's been over like 10, 15 years since I played it. So
What did you play it on?
Right. Wait.
PC.
Oh,
Played it on
man.
PC.
Oh, Jesus.
Man.
GameCube was mine.
Oh,
GameCube.
wow.
GameCube initially, and then it was, like I said, PS4 when we played it. But no, it was really fun. I really enjoyed it. I thought the endings were good. Yeah, I enjoyed it. It was a great game. I would absolutely. I did actually like save it and replay it to the to do both the light and dark side endings.
Yeah.
I will say that was one thing I kind of didn't like was one. I love when you first get the option to pick your force power. Kyle Katarn says there is no such thing as light and dark force powers. It's how you use them that decides whether they're light and dark. I loved that. I absolutely love that quote. That is one of my favorite quotes I've ever heard. The one thing I didn't like about the light and dark ending was after I completed the first series of missions, and then you do a mission on Hoth, I had one light skill upgraded all the way, and then a dark skill that was upgraded to like 2, and those were my only upgrades I'd gotten so far. And Luke said, "Your future is still cloudy." And it was showing my upgrades at that point, and I was like, "Oh, so like whichever light side or dark side you have upgraded more decides the ending. That's pretty cool." But then no, it's just a random choice at the end of one of the last missions that kill this guy or not, and that decides whether you're light or dark.
That's interesting. I thought it was tied to the force powers.
No, at the end of the second to last planet, you can either kill or spare your best friend who turned to the dark side but then didn't turn to the dark side. And it's like if you kill him, you're on the dark side. If you don't kill him, you're on the light side. Which also, I do think they kind of botched the last mission a bit because when you pick the light side, you go to the last planet, you have all the Jedis from Luke Academy are helping you fight all the bad guys. So it's like you're literally part of this war, and that's such a cool thing. I really loved it. When you pick the bad side, you become a dark Jedi. You're not working with the Sith. You're not with them. You're like, oh, they're all weak. They're stupid. They don't deserve this power. So I'm going to take it for myself. And so I thought initially when you pick the dark side, the Sith would then be working with you. So like on that last mission, it would be reversed, but no, you're just against everybody, which makes it even harder. So yeah, that like a few misses, I feel like in that whole light dark thing, but overall it's a successful game. I really enjoyed it. Anyway, so that's all we're going to talk about Star Wars Jedi Knight Jedi Academy. Noah, what is our next indie bit game?
Oh, I'm sorry. Our next indie bit game is actually going to be Ghost Runner.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it's a game that I pre-ordered. I don't pre-order a lot of games, but I pre-order it because, let's be honest, this year's been kind of a drought. And it looks cool, and it was like $25, so why not? It's basically a lot of platforming, and it's done level by level. It's very brief, a very fun game.
So no, we've been doing this podcast for half a year now.
Wow, way to go! The time flies when you do a podcast.
Yeah,
I'm telling you.
like the Spider-Man episode will actually be released, I think, like 4 days after we've officially been doing it for half a year, because we uploaded our first episode in October, and I forgot to talk about it in the Spider-Man one, so we're talking about it real quick here.
Yay!
All right, now it's time for Dylan's shameless plug.
Yes.
But basically, Dylan, the reason I asked you to do this episode with us was because you have your podcast, which is called the Fandom Archives. And initially it started out as a Star Wars podcast, the first 8 episodes you said. And that was actually one of the big reasons that I ended up starting this podcast with Noah, was because all the podcasts I listen to are done by companies with sound guys and production studios and all tracks, and in the episodes they'll talk about levels and stuff like that, and I'm like, I don't know what that means. So making a podcast was always something that was so crazy. But then when I saw you when you on Facebook were first announcing hey guys, I'm making a podcast, it's called Fandom Archives, look at it. I was like, wait a minute, this guy's just a guy and he's making a podcast?
Yeah, I'm just some schmuck.
Yeah. I was like, wait, I know that guy. He's just doing it himself. That's crazy. And so that's seeing you doing your podcast was what made me think oh man, I could actually do this. And even when I was starting, I first asked you about what you did to help me get started, which I followed pretty much all of that. So, without your podcast, this podcast definitely wouldn't exist. So why don't you, tell all of our 7 listeners who a little bit about your show?
Yeah. So Fandom Archives, we actually have a website. www.fandomarchives.com. Also find us on Twitter at FanArchivePod. And also I have a Twitch, which I rebranded to Fandom Archives as well. So you can find us anywhere there. Eventually we're going to do live recordings. So we'll actually have some more interactions and stuff like that. But like you mentioned, initially we started out as a Star Wars podcast. I decided halfway through that we also decided we were going to try to do 2 episodes a week, which I couldn't. Way too ambitious.
Wait. Hold on. I got to pause there. 2 every week?
That's insane.
Yeah.
So 104 episodes a year?
Yeah, that was the. They were a lot shorter back then, so we were doing. It was going to be we introduce 1 week, introduce the part we're going to talk about. The first part, and then the second half of the week is kind of deep diving or something like that. So I mean, we were recording all on the same day. It's just I was releasing on 2 separate days. But yeah, that I was no, not happening. Especially once we moved on from Star Wars. One of our biggest ones was we ended up actually doing a story on Stephen King. Spent a handful of episodes talking about him, Neil Gaiman. We had an interview with a horror writer named Edward Lauren. He's a fantastic guy, really, really funny guy too. I highly recommend checking him out, especially if you enjoy those kinds of books.
Yeah, I will say, I am a supportive friend, so I have listened to yours. I really did enjoy, especially the Stephen King episodes, because Stephen King is my favorite author, so it was definitely really interesting to hear, deeper dives into him and stuff.
Yeah, and that's really where we started to just start slowly evolving, because I wanted to be more than just we're just reiterating what many other people might have said or something like that, or easy to find information. So we started kind of bringing in our own kind of thoughts. That's where we started exploring a little bit more of the ethos and stuff like that. Finding correlations to different aspects of his writing and things like that. We have started possibly kind of diving a little bit more into anime as well. Covered Cowboy Bebop recently, and not really Cowboy Bebop. We covered the creator of Cowboy Bebop and Samurai Champloo. So we're trying to just find more of what we want to kind of do, topics like that. So we got some episodes planned. Right now, we're just trying to. I moved to this house back in October. life being as it is, I've been trying to slowly get the office in order and finally got some actual equipment so that we can record in person and it like be not garbage. So, well, not really garbage. It's more of two different audio levels, one on a mic and one on an AirPod. So made it difficult to get like really good sounding audio consistently. But yeah, we're excited. We've been doing it. It's been over a year now. We started back at the halfway through March 16th, if I'm not mistaken. Now, we haven't gone the entire year. We took a break and then we took another break. But yeah, it's exciting. Plan on coming back within the next couple months. Definitely keep an eye out on at Fan Archive Pod. You can find me on Dylan SWG or my Twitch Twitter account is Jake Dillenhall. So definitely check us out. Yeah, it's got some good things coming up, that's for sure. And girlfriend and I are starting another podcast called Cats in the Ocean. So this is the first time other people have heard about that name outside of people I've told individually in person.
Oh,
so,
this is a Gamer Bros exclusive?
Yeah, this is a Gamer Bros exclusive right here.
Oh my God, I'm cutting it.
He said he's cutting it.
You get one plug, one
Ah,
Dylan.
no.
Oh, no.
You get one plug. That's it. We're done.
I want to ask you, what do you do on Twitch?
I play mostly just kind of like strategy games. I play a little bit of like Apex occasionally, just whatever I'm kind of feeling at the time. With life, I haven't been streaming a whole lot. Just like when I have actually got to game, I've just kind of played some games just for myself. Like I've been playing Loop Hero quite a bit, which I'm loving so much.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
That's cool. I haven't played it. I know what it is. So yeah, Dylan, thanks for joining us on this May the 4th Star Wars special episode.
Thank you, Dylan.
Thank you for having me. It was a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Love talking Star Wars. So I mean, anytime I get to, I'm like,
yeah,
this is the one thing I got.
But we didn't even get to talk about the politics of the Senate.
Oh.
Anyway.
3 hours later.
Jesus. Anyway, yeah, so guys, don't forget new episodes every other Monday. Go ahead, rate and subscribe. Tell us if you like our show, or tell us if you don't, and tell us why. Tell your friends and your enemies about the podcast. And you can also follow our Twitter at Superb Gamer Bros. That is SUPERB Gamer Bros for updates on episodes. And yeah, we'll see you guys next game.
Bye. Jane, why don't we have a website?